is able to persist over time.
In the Manila Bay and other bays that experience red tides, it is the marginalized that is affected in health and in economy.
The engineering is the ability to absorb, thrive, and then recover. The faster you're able to recover, the more resilient.
Sa Pilipino, ito ay katibayan at katatagan sa mahirap na sitwasyon at ang kakayahang bumangon muli.
Yung ecological naman, the ability to adapt. Yung evolutionary resilience, Vale, to really innovate and be creative.
Resilience is really being able to spring back from adversity, but it should have learning, and therefore it strengthens you to be more resilient than before the adversity came to you.
Before COVID-19, the Philippines was already on to SMT-based measures to improve its resilience capacity. With COVID, the country was awakened to the need for resilience of our economic, health, and educational status as well.
The country as a whole is, I think, not so resilient because while we have the capabilities, the opportunities, and the resources to cope with COVID-19, the whole body is suffering because the leadership and management is not working so well. When it comes to individual resilience, those who have more resources, capabilities, and opportunities will be more resilient than those who are not.
A lot of the problems really may be interconnected, Vale. You have to look at it from a holistic point of view. It encompasses more than natural sciences or physical problem, Vale, but also it gets into the ecological, biological, as well as social pangat.
Among issues and problems we have are poverty, ecosystem destruction, climate change, and variability.
Much of our attention is placed only after the disasters happen. What we should do really is to take early action years before the hazard strikes, and we should put our attention and our resources into that type of planning.
We need SMT-based transdisciplinary and inclusive approach to coping with possible hazards.
The fragmentation of society needs to be resolved for resilience.
Communication is very, very important, and we should communicate to the people using not just scientific communication means, but through arts, music, understand the mindset of the Filipino people so we can communicate better.
Well, the way to move forward is interoperability.
So we have to do a lot of work as a person, as a community, and as an institution to really have resilience as one of the values of the Filipinos. Yung tunay na resilience na towards improvement.
Building resilience requires sustainability science inspired by transdisciplinary approach.
To be sustainable, you have to be resilient. To be resilient, you have to be sustainable.
Go natural, go with nature's flow. Non-structural or natural interventions, as well as good planning, is the most sustainable.
Finally, we need to harness and strengthen the Filipino spirit of bayanihan.
Isang magandang hapon po sa ating lahat at malugod na pagbati mula sa Future Earth Philippines. Welcome po sa The Filipino SDG Action Hour. Sa hapon na ito pag-uusapan natin ang topic na The Nexus Between Climate Change and Agricultural Productivity. So ang ating pong panauhin o speaker sa hapon na ito ay siyang kasalukuyang dekana ng Kolehiyo ng Agrikultura sa Mindanao State University, General Santos City. Siya po ay isang lisensyadong agriculturist at nagtapos po ng PhD sa Plant Pathology mula sa Oklahoma State University. Kabilang sa kanyang mga pinakamahalagang tagumpay ay ang pag-imbento ng room temperature DNA storage system at rapid microbial collection device. Siya po ay nagtamo ng ika-19th na ranggo sa agriculturist licensure exam noong 2005 at namuno sa mahalagang proyekto na pinondahan ng DOST at CHED at siya po ay may akda ng maraming publications at manual at ginawaran siya ng 2022 ATSI Emerging Leader Award sa Thailand at aktibong nagsisilbi sa mga profesional na organisasyong pang-agrikultura. So let's all welcome ang batang-batang dekana ng MSU General Santos City, Dr. Donna Ria Jose Canacan.
Good afternoon, sir. Share ko yung slide ko, sir.
Sige lang po, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon to everyone. Actually, I would like to add yung sa fisheries component for this presentation. So the title is The Nexus Between Climate Change and Agricultural Productivity and Fisheries. Proceed na ako, sir.
Sige po, ma'am. Go ahead po.
Okay, so itong presentation na to, merong 4 components. We'll start with the trends sa climate data, and then we'll look at the agricultural production, and of course, ito is output ng project namin on tuna since nasa General Santos City kami, and this has really a big impact sa food security. So I will also explain yung sa feed behavior ng tuna and how it relates sa climate change and sa food security. And then the final part would be the connection ng tatlong yan. Okay, so the trends sa climate data, of course tayo, we are already aware of the trends sa data, but I will just review yung 3 sa pinaka main factors na related to climate change. We have of course, the global surface temperature, yung greenhouse gas emissions natin, and of course, annual precipitation. So for the global surface temperature, we know na nag-increase nga yung ating temperature annually, and about 1.1% increase at degrees Celsius above the data natin ng 1850 to 1900 we recorded this 2011 to 2020. And then yung from 1850 nagkaroon ng increase sa temperature na 0.06 degrees Celsius, and 1982 we have an increase na 0.2 degrees Celsius, which is alarming kasi every year nag-increase. So about this previous century, yung Earth increase naging warmer ng about 1.47 degrees Celsius. So ngayon, the recent 10 years ay actually ang pinakamainit, and lahat naman tayo na experience natin yun, no? Na-feel talaga natin na mainit just recently. So dito makikita natin yung paano nag-increase ang global surface temperature. So this, you can see from 1951 to 1990 and onwards hanggang 20, this is until 2023 na data, we can see yung pag-increase ng temperature. So noong 1924, we have this negative anomaly which indicates na nagiging cooler yung Earth during that time. But then, if you look at yung 1944, so meron ng naging warmer, no? We have a positive anomaly which indicates yung warmer temperature. Then by 1964, nakita natin bumaba na naman, no? Nagkaroon tayo ng negative anomaly which means na dumalamig yung Earth. But then dito mapapansin natin by the time nag 1984, nag 0.21 degrees Celsius ang temperature anomaly 1984, you can see by 2004 nag-increase na yung temperature anomaly. So the positive anomaly indicates na it's getting warmer. And by 2024 naging 1.28 degrees Celsius. So it really shows na nagiging mas mainit ang temperature ng ating ng Earth. And here we can see dito, we have a map. I have this map which shows us yung paano nag-increase ang temperature through time. So right here, ito ay noong 1884, ganyan pa, no? We can see if it's blue pa, more blue means colder. Pag papunta towards the red, it becomes warmer. So ito yung data for the year 1884. By the time 1924, you see para naging colder some parts and then sa taas, sa northern part, you see na warmer siya. This is 1924. By 1944, we can really see how the change in the temperature based on this figure. Kita na talagang naging yellow na siya than the previous na blue. Ito yung previous and you can see, naging yellow na siya and this is 1944. And then by 1964, naging blue na naman siya. Pero merong part na red. But here, biglang in 1984, we can see that yellow na naman, no? And ito, 2000, as we approach yung year 2000s, we can see na talagang yellow to red na ang temperature natin. So it's really getting warmer. And by 2022, we can see doon sa ating polar caps na mainit na siya. So that's why we observe na yung melting of the ice because of the warming temperature. So one of the reasons is, of course, yung marami na tayong literature on the emission of the greenhouse gases. And kapag greenhouse gases, that is mainly due to human activities. So ito, about 56% ng greenhouse gases ay CO2, which is absorbed by the land and ocean sinks, which means na both yung land and ocean natin ay affected dahil dito sa emission ng greenhouse gases. So by 2000 to 2009, there is already 2.1% na per year na emission ng greenhouse gases. So our major greenhouse gases, of course, we already know these, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and fluorinated gases. So here we can see yung paano yung pag-increase ng greenhouse gases, yung emissions niya. So from 1850 to 2023, we can see yung peak, yung rate increases around towards the 1980s, then going to the 2000. And here also we can see carbon dioxide, the methane, the nitrous oxide, nag-increase rin siya towards the mainly ang mataas ang increase is the carbon dioxide towards going to the 2000s. Same thing, this is for greenhouse gases emissions that resulting from human activities. Of course, this continues to increase. So time series, titingnan natin yung greenhouse gas emissions through time. So this is in 1890. So the more red, the higher yung greenhouse gas emission. This is 1890. You can see nung 1824, no, na mas nagiging intense yung pagiging red sa map natin. Then, 1944, we see increase also, mas naging intense, and even more, 1964, we have the 1984, 2004, we can see yung how it became more intense. So meaning mas madami, mas mataas ang level of greenhouse gases sa ating atmosphere. And this is for the 2020. So even our annual precipitation became what we could say abnormal, no? More frequent, intense storms, some areas. So this would increase yung precipitation at magkakaroon ng problem with flooding. Just like here in Jensan, noon, hindi problema ang baha dito sa Jensan because we have a sandy type of soil. Pero ngayon, even though we have a sandy type of soil, nagkakaroon kami ng flooding for many reasons, and part of it also ay grabe na rin ang ulan. So drying in some areas also we observe that, so there's less precipitation and increased risk of drought. So let's look at yung worldwide precipitation. So this is the data sa ating precipitation. So there are lower than the average, and there are times na meron tayong higher than the average sa precipitation. So in terms of the time series, we can see this is 1944. So ito naman, the bluer, the more or higher ang precipitation sa area na yon than kung papuntang yellow. So that is the 1944. You can see, of course, sa Philippines, tayo talaga ay maulan. So you can see na blue tayo. So 1964, this is 1984, 2004. So merong mga parts na intense blue, then mawala ang pagka-intense blue nila. Okay, so this is 2024. So in terms of agricultural production, we look at yung time series also. So this is a global maize production increase dito. From 1994 to 2023, you can see na meron tayong increase for several reasons. Of course, kasama dyan yung ating mga improved variety, better technology, and similar trend we see for wheat production, and increase din ng ating wheat production. And for soybean also, to see the increase the soybean production. And for the rice. For meat also, we can see there's the poultry, yung sa pig and other livestock. We can see na there's also an increase sa production. That is, of course, alam naman natin na with the improved technology, we also have increased population of people that we have to feed. So, humahabol tayo sa population. So, we have to make sure na meron tayo pagkain. So, in terms of climate change, I also would like to explain itong sa tuna. Kasi dito sa Jensan, of course, Jensan is the tuna capital of the Philippines, and we produce a lot of, we catch a lot of tuna, and there are still several questions when it comes to tuna. At of course, kasama dyan yung kanilang feeding behavior. Kasi one of the pinaka-concern with tuna ay nahirapan nang makahuli ang mga fishermen ng tuna. So, with our talk sa mga fisher folks, actually, lalo na yung mga seniors na, they have this story na noon daw, dito sa Sarangani Bay, it only takes about 30 minutes para makahuli ng tuna. But, ngayon, it takes about 7 days of travel, yung kanilang malalaking shipping vessels, para lang makahuli sila ng tuna. So one of the reasons na tinitingnan namin dyan is climate change, no? Nagkaroon ng changes sa behavior or even yung ano kayong ginagawa nila. So dito sa project ko, this is more on the feeding behavior. Anong kinakain ng tuna, and dahil is it more on, hindi pa namin na-solve, hindi pa namin alam ang answer kung ito ba ay dahil sa ginagawa ng tao, is it overfishing, but of course, hindi naman sinasabing overfishing siya kasi may nanguhuli pa naman. So, another reason na tinitingnan is climate change. So, nagkaroon ng changes sa behavior ng mga tuna. So, ito yung sa kanilang feeding behavior. Ano kayang kanilang feeding behavior? So, ito siya, this is the tuna catch in 1,000 tons. We can see na nag-increase ang catch natin ng tuna from the 1970s. Ito ay up to 2009 and even increasing. That's why dito nga sa Gensan, we have the almost lahat ng kanin for tuna ay nandito sa Gensan. And that is because ito ang bagsakan ng tuna. So dito sa aming study, we look at yung dalawang klase, two types ng tuna or two groups of tuna. We have the neritic tuna and the oceanic tuna. So yung neritic tuna, ito kasi yung tuna that if you look at the picture, ito yung tuna na dito lang siya, no? Malapit siya sa coast. So hindi natin in-expect ito sila that they will go out dito sa oceanic area ng dagat. So they're mainly dito sa coast. And the oceanic, mas malalaking, kasi take note, ang neritic ay mas maliliit na tuna. So ito sila, example, we have the bullet tuna, frigate tuna, and the little tuna. Then dito naman yung mga oceanic tuna, they are bigger. So they are not expected na pupunta dito kapag malalaki sila kasi nga babangga sila doon sa bottom of the sea. So with the climate change, hindi pa natin alam kung ano ba talaga ang effect ng climate change dito sa tuna dito sa Philippines. Kasi ito siya, this is actually the pioneering work on tuna, itong study na to. So ngayon, ang tinignan namin is ano bang kinakain nila at ito ba ay may implication ba yan sa ating sa food security, and some of the questions that we are still asking ay yung behavior ba nila ay affected by of course, the climate change, which we think actually ay affected. So we studied 6 tuna species. Meron kaming neritic na tuna and meron kaming oceanic tuna. So yung neritic, ito yung mas maliliit na klase, mas of course yung eastern dito tuna, ang tawag dito locally is kawa-kawa. We have the frigate tuna, ang tawag is tulingan, and the bullet tuna na tulingan din ang kanyang local name, but magkakaiba sila ng species. Ito namang oceanic tuna, we have the yellowfin tuna, which is yung tambakol. We have the skipjack, gulyasan, and the barilet. So itong mga oceanic tuna, ito sila ay more important for the export natin, sa mga export natin na companies. Ito ang interest nila, the yellowfin, the skipjack, and the big eye. Ito namang mga local fishermen, ang interest nila is the neritic tuna, yung eastern little, yung mga local lang, no? Frigate tuna and the bullet tuna. So within the water, so since this is a pioneering work, ang interest namin is more on the feeding behavior. But one of the future plans actually ay kung makakapunta ba kami and to measure other parameters, other climatic parameters na para makita namin yung behavior talaga ng tunan. But since this is still a pioneering work, ito lang talaga yung coverage ng project. But there are a lot of questions that arise after we got the results dito sa study na to. So ito yung dito kami na kumuha ng mga samples, and it's really hard to get samples dahil nga take note, ang tuna is a migratory fish. So pumupunta siya sa Philippines could be for food. Ang hindi pa namin sure ay ito bang Philippines ay breeding ground ba or siya ay more on nursery. So pagka ganun kasi itong with the climate change, it is possible na hindi na sila dadaan ng Philippines, no? Pag nagkaroon ng changes sa water temperature, changes sa atmospheric temperature. So yung maraming factors affecting or factors that we consider na related to climate change. Pag merong changes doon, it will also affect yung behavior ng tuna. So this is one way that we did the collection. We went to merong iba na pwede namin hulihin doon mismo sa dagat, but some we stop local fishermen at sa kanila kami bumili. And they have GPS nung mga locations kung saan sila nakahuli. So these are the size classes ng tuna na nahuli namin dito sa Mindanao water. So for the Neritic tuna, smaller yung sizes nila, so they could go up to about 50 centimeter. But for the oceanic tuna, we can go up to 130 centimeter para sa size 3 na class ng oceanic tuna. So this is how we process. We opened up the tuna kasi nga ang interest namin is to see the content. Ano bang kinakain ng tuna na yan? So we open, ito siya, actually itong tuna na ito, only the portion ng tiyan niya could cost up to 5,000 pesos. So yun pa lang, it's expensive, no? And you can even get a tuna na could cost up to 20,000 pesos. So dito, lalo na tuna is a big industry, marami ang kumakain ng tuna. So ang behavior nila, if there's alteration or any changes sa behavior nila, this will really affect yung food supply natin. So here we collected the insides of the stomach. Then we look at it morphologically identified, but if you see hindi sila hindi mo ma-identify. Ang kaya lang makita is the squid. Pero yung iba, you can no longer identify kung ano ang kinain ng tuna and anong species ng tuna na yun, o anong species ng organism ang kinain niya. So in order for us to determine kung ano yung kinain ng tuna, we did the DNA analysis. So we have yung mga partially digested na contents, just like this one. Kung partially digested siya, we did the metabarcoding. So dito, we did the PCR analysis para ma-identify namin yung species. Kasi meron parang portion ng prey na kaya pa namin ma-isolate yung DNA. But for those na talagang fully digested na hindi na talaga ma-identify kung anong species, we did metagenomics or yung next generation sequencing. So dito, we submitted yung fully digested na sample sa laboratory, and then we did bioinformatics to identify ano yung kinakain ng mga tuna. So here is what we got. No? Ang mga tuna they have this high vacuity index. Anong ibig sabihin nito? Marami sa nahuli namin ay empty ang stomachs. Some would say na bakit empty? Wala na ba silang nakakain? So isa yun sa mga questions na gusto naming malaman in the future. Wala na ba silang nakakain? Dahil ba sa climate change, nagugutom na rin ba yung mga tuna natin? So isa yan sa mga questions na of course hindi pa natin alam ang sagot. Meron naman, if you see yung Neritic, 87% sa kanila ay empty ang stomach. It is also kasi possible that kasi maliliit sila na tuna, mabilis ang kanilang digestion. Pwede rin yun. Ang oceanic naman, ito yung mas malalaking tuna, 64% sa kanila ay empty ang stomach. So, yun nga, isa sa mga tanong doon ay, wala na ba silang nakain or talagang mabilis lang ang digestion nila? Or ano lang, or nung nahuli sila, hindi pa sila nakakain. So, ganyan. And then, based on the results sa study namin, we identified na there are three major prey groups na kinakain ng tuna. Yung mga isda, yung fishes, yung cephalopod, yung mga squid, at yung mga crustacean. Now, ang fishes ang pinaka-importante. So, it means, it implies na kung pinaka-importante ang fishes, any change doon sa population ng prey ng tuna could also cause changes sa population nitong mga tuna. So ito naman yung mga prey na na-identify namin na kinakain ng tuna is on using yung metabarcoding. So this is yung relative abundance, ilan yung nakain nila using metabarcoding. This is yung sa Sanger sequencing for the Neritic tuna species. We have the Eastern Little Tuna and the Frigate Tuna. Ang mapansin niyo, walang bullet tuna for this specific group of sample kasi wala kaming nakuha na stomach na recognizable ang content niya. So dito, with Sanger sequencing, we identified na for the Eastern Little, yung ELT, ang pinakamarami niya nakain is actually Oxys rothschild, which is also a tuna. So, anong ibig sabihin nun? Ang tuna, kinakain niya rin ang tuna. So, yung second ay yung Katsuonus pelamis, no? Also a tuna. So, ganun nga, yung tuna, kinakain niya rin ang tuna. So, it means they are all affected if yung climate change na na-observe natin ngayon also would affect. If one species is affected, lahat sila affected na. The predators are also affected. So, yung third, yung ELT also feeds on Oxys tassard and merong eukaryote and other species. So, dito naman sa metabarcoding, we identified also na yung number one is Katsuonus pelamis, which is skipjack. So, ang skipjack is also a prey ng bigger tuna. Yung yellowfin natin, yung skipjack also, and big eye tuna. So there are 9 number of prey species na ang relative abundance is more than 4%. Yung sa ELT o yung Eastern Little Tuna, there are 9 species na pinaka-importante when it comes sa species na they prey on. For the frigate tuna, there are 9. And for the bullet tuna, the frigate there were 8 and 9 naman ang na-identify with bullet tuna. So, ang total number of prey species actually ng tuna ay 342. And ito siya, we wouldn't be able to identify itong mga prey na to if we didn't do yung metagenomics. Then this one is for our oceanic tuna. So for the oceanic tuna, there's a total number of 144 na species na kinakain ng oceanic tuna. Yung greater than 4% na relative abundance, ang yellowfin, there are 9. So we can see dito yung mga species nila. Later on, papakita ko kung ano yung mga yun. There are 5 naman sa skipjack at 8 naman sa big eye tuna. So we can see here that yung bigger tuna also feed on smaller tuna or even the same bigger tuna, but most likely mas maliit na size classes ang nakakain nila. So from the 342 and 144 prey species ng neritic and oceanic tuna, respectively, merong less than 30% overlap, which means na nagkakaroon ng, they feed on the same species. Merong similarities sa kinakain nila. Now, ito ang problema. Pag nagkulang doon sa mga species na yon, as affected by environmental conditions, magkakaroon sila ng competition. So, ito ay magiging malaking problema para sa atin. Kasi this would mean na our food supply ay magkakaroon din ng negative impact sa ating food supply. So here we can see na there's overlap. So yung this is for the 3 neritic tuna species. Ang blue shaded regions shows yung overlap ng tatlong neritic tuna species. Itong gray area ay dito sila nag-overlap sa species na to. You can see yung 1, 2, 3, itong mga praise na to ay kinakain ng tatlong species ng tuna, while yung 4 to 8 are being fed or being preyed upon by 2 neritic tuna species. When it comes to oceanic naman, we have the etong blue portion, itong sa 1, 2, 3, they are fed by the 3 species ng tuna, and 4 to 6 are being fed or preyed upon by 2 species ng tuna. So these are the prey species na nagkakaroon ng overlap. So ito yung predators. So you can see for the Capterus smithvanezi, this one, yung mackerel scad, lahat ng tuna that we studied, they prey on the same species. Which means if this species is affected by environmental changes, particularly yung climate change, then lahat itong ating predators, and actually predators sila, but itong ating food are also affected. Similarly, ito, yung squid, although kinakain din natin ito, so parang magkakaroon tayo ng competition with the tuna pagka magkakaroon ng reduction sa kanilang population. And you can see, 6 din na species ng tuna ang kumakain nitong squid na species na to. And this one also, yung big eye cigarfish, there are 4 species ng tuna feeding on them. This one is yung mas known natin na matambaka. Ang matambaka ay kinakain natin, so this is also our food, but also food din siya ng 6 species ng tuna that we study. So it means, dahil nga we know na merong effect ang climate change with the availability ng or the response and the growth habit ng ating mga organisms, including sa ocean, if this species of fish is affected, nag-reduce ang population niya, then magkakaroon tayo ng yung domino effect. No? So ito sila, they will be affected as well. And we will be affected in the end dahil magkakaroon tayo ng kulang, deficient, kakulangan o insufficiency sa ating food supply. So ang skipjack also, you can see here, yung 5 species ng tuna also feed on the skipjack, which is also tuna. Tuna din ang skipjack, kinakain siya ng tuna. Then we have here 4 species ng tuna feeding on the snake unicorn fish. So dyan sila nagkaroon ng mga overlap, which also kung titingnan natin, nag-overlap din sa pagkain natin. And here we also have this lesser bream, tatlong tuna species ang nagpe-prey on this species. We have another 3 feeding on the black snake mackerel. Yung eastern little tuna also is being fed or preyed upon by these 3 species, yung bullet, frigate, and the yellowfin. And even yung shrimp ay kinakain din ng tatlong species ng tuna. Okay, then we have here a mole. So, anong implication nito sa atin? Knowing that these are the species ng prey ng tuna, na kinakain natin yung species na yan, kinakain din siya ng tuna, and with the climate change, magkakaroon tayo ng malaking problema pag nagkaroon ng reduction sa kanilang population. So isa yan sa mga question na hindi pa namin nasasagutan. We still don't know ano ang effect ng climate change sa kanila dito sa Mindanao waters. Kasi nga, this is just the pioneering work. And we observe na there's an autogenetic diet shift occurring in each species of the 6 tuna species at varying life stages. Ibig sabihin nito, ang tuna, they change their diet as they get bigger. So, dito papasok yung isipin natin na they are migratory, so they would, it's possible that they go to one place and eat doon kung ano yung preferred nila na diet and go dito sa atin to look for yung preferred nila na diet. So as they get bigger, they also have changes sa kanilang diet and they have preferences. So we can see that nagkaroon ng changes sa species that they are feeding on as they get bigger, and even ang frigate, you can see here also. So dito, ang A is from the meta barcoding result at ang B to D ay from the metagenomics result. So we can see yung changes, yung size classes, as they get bigger, they have changes in their diet. Similarly, this is for the oceanic tuna. We also observe the same. No? As they get bigger, they also change their diet. So ano ang naman ang implication nito sa atin, no? Particularly in relation to climate change. Siyempre, no, they would have different requirement, no, as they grow bigger, and it could mean na papasok na naman doon yung ating food supply, no? Kasi there are certain classes ng tuna na we can eat at meron namang mga size classes na hindi pa natin pwedeng kainin, lalo na yung maliliit, no? Kaya nga pinagbawal yung smaller na fish net. So the tuna has diverse diets, but of course they show preference for certain specific species. At there are about more than 100 species ng prey ang kinakain nung maliliit natin na tuna. And there are also mas kakaunti o less than 100 species naman ang kinakain ng mga bigger na tuna. So in terms of diversity, ang neritic, yung diversity ng diet nila ay moderate to very high, while the oceanic naman ay moderate to high. When it comes to dietary bread and diversity, ito yung we can say na with the tuna species, yung richness nila, this is the richness, no? Kung gaano karami ang species, evenness, so they are moderately even doon sa tatlong species, and the diversity is moderate to high. While for the oceanic, also same, merong evenness, meron silang selectivity, and the diversity ng kanilang diet is moderate to high. So here are the selected preys ng ating tuna. So for ELT, they have 22 selected species, 26 sa frigate, and 31 ang selected. So it means meron silang behavior that they would select certain species ng fish na favorite nila. So this means na namimili sila ng kanilang pagkain. So for the ELT, ang favorite niya is yung skipjack tuna. So ELT, Eastern Little Tuna, is also a tuna that prefers to eat tuna. Then we have yung frigate tuna na ang favorite nila is yung black snake mackerel. Then we have the bullet tuna na ang favorite niya is yung frigate tuna. So this is another example na yung tuna also feed on tuna. Favorite niya yung another species ng tuna. So for our oceanic tuna, ang yellowfin tuna would select 17 species. Ang favorite niya ay yung oilfish. Yung skipjack naman selects 6 species, pero ito ang favorite niya yung matambaka, yung big eye, scud. Then we have the big eye tuna na favorite ay yellowfin, which is another tuna. So, is there a connection between climate change and agricultural production and fisheries? Of course, we have, there is a very strong and well-documented connection between climate change and agricultural productivity and fisheries. So, currently, dito makita natin there are thousands of papers already showing the impact of climate change on, this is just for agricultural production. So, ano ba ang relationship or the connection between climate change and agriculture and fishery? So, of course, climate change negatively impact agriculture and fisheries. And yung ating mga agricultural production and yung fisheries, so yung catch fisheries natin, those are activities. We do have activities. And yung activities natin also contribute sa climate change. So, kaya siya two-way, no? With that, that's why we emphasize yung sustainability sa ating mga practices so that hindi tayo mamblema sa food natin pagdating ng araw. So, yung negative impact of climate change actually would bring food security concerns sa atin. And with that, that's why we have these, yung ating mga SDGs, no? So that we can mitigate the effect of climate change and we can provide food, no? Even sa mga future generations, no? Sa mga apo natin and future generations ng human. So here is the impact and related losses or damages of climate change. Ito ay based on the IPCC. We can see here water availability and food production. Pagka itong red is adverse ang impact. Pag merong green ay adverse and positive impact. Merong confidence level na either high, medium, or low. We can see na agriculture and crop production ay affected ng climate change, animal and livestock production ay affected, and fisheries, aquaculture production ay affected. With that, of course, yan ay food natin, no? We have our food affected as well yung ating health, yung ating well-being dahil nga ano na sila, di ba? They are already connected to each other, and even yung ating environment. No? Nagkakaroon tayo ng flooding, and that would, of course, would have an effect doon sa ating production and fishery. So I think that's all for today.
Ay, nako, Ma'am Donna, maraming salamat po sa napaka-insightful po na topic for today. So ngayon po, napakalinaw po na pinilisan po ng ating panauhin ang malaking epekto ng ating ginagawa sa kapaligiran. Ito po ay nakaka-apekto hindi lang po sa isda, sa halaman, but at the end of the day, ang affected po dito ay tayo po, yung population po natin, at ang pending, matagal na po itong nahulaan, college pa po ako, meron po talagang pending na food insecurity na mangyayari along the way. So right now, we're going to open our floor sa ating pong mga panelists, sa ating pong mga attendees for any questions and inquiries and clarifications. Alam ko tong si Academician Ruben at si Sir Ted, ito po ay si Ma'am Bergie, mga expert po to ng agrikultura. Alam ko madami po yung mga tanong. Yes, sabi ko na nga po, si Academician Ruben, ano po ang ating tanong?
Donna, lumiligwak na karunungan ng iyong ibinahagi sa amin. Kaya hindi ko malaman kung ano ang talagang aking itatanong. Pero isang simpleng katanungan lang. Ano nag-trigger sa iyo to go into this kind of studies? What inspired you?
Actually, sir, dito kasi sa Bensan, tuna talaga ang main commodity namin. And then MSU Jensan is the only state university within this area. So, ito, isa sa nakikita namin, yun nga, of course, we are closely associated with fisher folk. So, even kahit yung agriculture kahit agriculture yung halimbawa topic namin, ano din sila, agriculturist, farmers and fisher folk. So, ganun, lagi silang nahahalo. So what happens is, doon namin na-explain nila na mayroon silang problema with the tuna, nahirapan silang manghuli minsan, or very low ang kanilang catch, and ang pinaka main problem pa ay malayo pa. And with the absence ng basic research, wala pa kasing basic research dito sa atin. And dito sa amin, at that time, I am the only one doing molecular study. So hindi ma-identify kung yung mga lahat ng behaviors, and lalo na yung food. So dahil I am the only one doing molecular, and ko anong gagawin to find the answer. So that's why sabi ko, sige, gawin ko na lang, kahit kung isipin natin parang tumalon ako ng field kasi I'm an agriculturist, fisheries yon. But still, we are still dealing with food kasi dito. So that's why isa yun sa mga reasons bakit I proceeded with the project.
At what inspired me, Donna, is that at your fingertips, nasasabi mo kung anong mga species ng tuna. And sabi ko, ang tinik. So, how long did it take you to develop that kind of expertise?
So ito siya, sir, ginawa ito, parang for 3 years kasi ito siya na project. So along the way, yun, nag-learn ako how to do it. When I started with the project, nag-research ako, tiningnan ko ano mga species na to. Kasi wala talaga akong idea with the isda sa tuna. But with the methods, alam ko anong gagawin. So, kaya yun siya. For siguro the entire 3 years, meron talagang learning during that time.
Alright, finally, ilang estudyante na ang na-inspire mo to follow your footsteps?
Marami na siguro. I think, kasi ang yung sa amin mismo, yung directly involved sa research, we have about 16, 11 na undergraduate students, and we have 5 na graduate students na directly na mentor ko on dito sa research na to. And I know they are still doing yung related pa din sa tuna or fish. Yung iba ay molecular ang kanilang field.
Thank you again. Congratulations, and may your tribe increase.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
So si Dr. Kanakan po ang isang ehemplo ng isa talagang scientist. Imagine agriculturist, soil scientist, tapos plant pathologist, tapos naging expert sa isda. So kung ano po ang tawag ng environment bilang isang scientist, handa po dapat tayong tumugon sa gantong mga tungkulin. Ngayon, mapunta po tayo sa question po ni Doc M. After po ay kay academician Montaño naman po. Yes, Doc M, ano pong question po natin?
Good afternoon sa lahat. Ma'am, ako po ay vet. In animal science at saka vet med, mayroon tayong tinatawag na body index. Sa tuna ba mayroon din kung ano yung ideal, ano yung tinatawag nating payat siya, emaciated, or what? Mayroon din bang ganong scoring sa tuna, ma'am?
Currently, sir, ang size classes pa lang talaga ang basis for the scoring sa sa isda. And ang isa sa mga na laman namin doon sa study, actually sa ibang project yun, hindi pala ibig sabihin na pag maliit yung tuna ay bata pa siya or young. Kasi merong mga maliliit na may nakita na develop na yung kanilang ovaries, develop na yung testis nila. So isa yan sa mga questions na hindi pa rin namin nasasagot hanggang ngayon when it comes doon sa sizes. So it's possible na talagang may mga instances could be pwede kasing climate change isa din sa factors na yung maliliit na tuna mature na. Parang maliit sila tapos mature na pala sila. So ganun. So currently, isa pa yan sa questions na gusto namin masagutan sa project. Sa program siya, sir.
So Doc Kanakan, posible po kaya na because of climate change and environmental factors, na-induce yung early maturity ng mga isda?
It is possible po, sir. It is possible.
Sige po.
Kasi yun nga, isa sa pinagtataka namin, bakit maliliit sila pero mature na yung kanilang ovaries, ganon. So kasi sa tuna, ito ang sa tuna, ang main thing. Hindi mo malalaman kung babae or lalaki siya. Yung sa itsura niya lang, pag tiningnan mo yung isda, hindi mo alam, hindi kagaya ng ibang species ng animals na pag tiningnan mo, halimbawa sa insects, you can know na lalaki yan or babae yan, just looking at yung, or yung morphology niya, or kita mo lang siya. Pero with tuna, tingnan mo sila, kamukha sila, pero hindi mo alam kung babae or lalaki. So you have to open yung talagang stomach niya para malaman mo kung lalaki ba siya or babae.
So ma'am, hindi masasabi kung ang tuna ay payat or emaciated or malnutrition or what?
Actually, sir, yun pa yung isa sa mga questions na gusto namin ma-answer. Kasi ngayon, very limited pa lang ang information namin dahil nga pioneer siya na study. But most likely, pwede nating malaman yan siguro in the future. Kasi isa yun, sir, yung kagaya yung sa diet na sinasabi, baka gutom sila or payat sila or pero maraming factors. Actually, yung expert namin sa fishery, so hindi nyo pwedeng sabihin na nagutom sila. Kasi it could be, depende sa time ng pag-catch sa kanila, depende din sa even yung mga water temperature, may effect din daw doon sa isda.
Ma'am, last na lang ito, sir, ano-ano kaya yung mga diseases of tuna that affect tuna production?
Currently, sir, unknown pa yung sa diseases. Hindi namin siya na-cover sa aming study, yung sa diseases. At isa yan sa mga future. At isa sa common na napansin namin, although wala pa kami talagang sufficient data, pansin namin yung tuna lagi siyang merong parasite or mainly may parasite. Sa tingin namin parasite siya, pero we are not sure kung parasitic ba talaga yun doon sa loob ng tiyan niya. So we don't know kung yun ba ay makakos, may negative effect sa tuna or baka hindi talaga siya parasite.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Salamat po, Doc M. So, right now po, mapunta po tayo sa question po ni Academician Montaño. Sir, ano pong question po natin?
We looked at the ocean currents, the movement of the ocean currents due to climate change.
Sir?
We looked at the ocean currents, the movement of it changes into ocean currents due to climate change, which would affect the movement of the fishes.
Yes, sir. Actually, sir, yan ay isa sa mga gusto naming tingnan sa next phase ng study. Kasi isa sa mga questions, ang challenge kasi with studying itong mga isda, ang gusto sana talaga namin gawin yung sasakay kami ng barko tapos doon na magme-measure na lahat ng parameters. But currently, of course, we are still looking for funding for that kasi every sampa sa barko would cost us 1 million.
Medyo mahal.
Opo. So, kailangan talaga naming i-strategize anong gagawin. Hindi masayang yung biyahe namin at isa yan sa mga gusto naming i-check. Kasi yung data lang namin ngayon ay limited pa lang siya. Talagang pioneer lang talaga na parang na study ang nakandak namin. Pero yung original plan, at saka sir, ginawa namin to during the pandemic. Gusto sana namin pumunta sa dagat, bawal. Gusto naming sumama doon sa mga barko pero hindi pwedeng pumasok sa mga fish port. Ganun siya. So, pero isa yan sa mga plans na gusto naming makita talaga. Yung sa ocean, the actual, ano ba talaga nangyayari doon sa ocean and the currents. Currently, wala kaming data on that.
I would suggest you think up with the BIFAR because they have oceanographic cruises.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, sir, partner namin ang BIFAR dito and this is Picard ang funding agency namin dito and hopefully sa next step, sa next phase namin.
Thank you.
Thank you din po, Academician Montaño. So, mapunta po tayo rin sa question po sa ating pong Q&A box and after po, punta po tayo kay Ma'am Virgie Cuevas. So, ito po, galing po kay El Bayrante. Hi, Dr. Kanan Kan. So, thank for the presentation and can you also brief us on the initiative daw po ng government para daw po ma-address ang climate change and yung impact po nito sa fisheries and agriculture. So, ano daw po yung strength and weaknesses of the initiative? Meron po ba tayong dito, data?
Yes. Actually, sir, meron tayo di ba mga policies? We have laws on climate change. Yung Climate Change Act, di ba? Meron tayong Republic Act. And we have existing initiative like yung Climate Change Act, Republic Act of 9729. Ito na yung policies on, of course, yung we have the commission and yung resources on for of course to mitigate the effect of climate change. And ano pa yung isang question, sir?
Ano daw po yung strength and weaknesses ng initiative?
The strength, of course, dahil ito ay already put into law, we already have the resources available. So kasi batas na siya, di ba maganda talaga na if we have data available, in response to the data available, we have a policy. And mas maganda na meron tayong batas. And of course, with the existing law, minsan siguro ang magiging challenge would be the implementation. Lalo na pagdating sa within yung at lower natin sa mga LGU, barangay, ganun siya. So like for example, sa fisheries, yung isa sa mga problems, kung mga malalaking vessels, madali silang ma-regulate eh. Kasi di ba, they have permits and then hindi sila makakabiyahe kung they have violations. Pero pagdating sa mga smaller fisher folks, mas mahirap silang i-monitor. So, although pwede silang pakiusapan, ganun. So, kaya lang kasi, di ba, yung livelihood nila nakadepend doon. So, isa yan sa
Tama.
mga challenges that we have to look at.
Okay. So, papunta po tayo sa isa pa pong question. Ito po, nakalagay dito. Meron na po ba kayo nakitang information and correlation doon sa population po ng tuna and production matapos po na magkaroon ng tuna fishing ban, lalo na po sa mga oceanic tuna?
Okay. Sa data, currently, wala kaming data on that. Pero ang isa sa mga gusto talagang, meron kasi kaming isa pang project. Hindi kasi madaling ano gani sir, yung ano no, yung after the fishing ban, in a way, according lang naman, no, parang according lang naman ito doon sa mga nakausap namin na fisher folk, meron siya talagang effect. Pero kami, on our hand, yung first, sa amin mismo na information, wala kami. Wala sa amin. Pero yung based lang on the discussion with the fisher folks, meron naman effect yung pagban. Kaya lang, ito nga, isa sa mga, merong ibang grupo sa amin na gusto ng iban ang fishing, but at the end, titingnan pa rin natin yung paano tayo magko-compromise with the fisher folk kasi affected ang livelihood nila. So, hindi yun nakita natin na ganito yung population, iban na natin kaagad. So, kailangan talaga pag-aralan natin mabuti before tayo mag-initiate ng fishing ban. But doon sa malalaking waters, meron sila existing na ban. And it's really working kasi based on data yon doon sa bigger waters. Pero dito within us, wala pa. Wala tayong data.
Okay po. Salamat po, ma'am. So, mapunta po tayo sa question po ni Ma'am Bergie. Yes po, Ma'am Bergie.
At maraming salamat, Dr. Kanakan, sa napakaganda mong research. Curious lang ako, di ba may data tayo on annual data ng production ng tuna, especially yung galing sa commercial fishing, no? Nagawa na ba kayo ng some study, statistical correlation, doon sa fish catch natin with the climate change, yung temperature. Let's say, for example, increasing temperature. Kasi at least tanggalin natin yung iba pa mga factors like, for example, increase in the number of fisher folks. Pero kung malinis ang data, mayroon bang correlation yung ating annual production, especially yung mga na-export, with the increasing temperature of the ocean? Meron na bang gumawa noon?
Ma'am, yun ang gusto namin gawin. I-measure talaga yung temperature sa ocean. And kasi yung data with the catch, ang gusto namin gawin kasi syempre we have to go sa ocean to measure and then we catch. Ganun, so para makita natin kung meron bang correlation. But currently, that is still yung missing na data na kailangan naming kunin. Marami pa talagang hindi pa na explore sa tuna. And of course, dito sa Jensen, actually sabi, MSU Jensen lang talaga ang pwedeng makagawa nung dito sa tuna sa Mindanao waters because kami nga daw yung tuna capital of the Philippines. And concerning yung feedback ng mga fisher folks natin. So, yes, hopefully makakuha kami ng data on that.
Okay, thank you. Good luck. Sana ay marami
Thank
pa
you,
kayong
ma'am.
magawang research kasi one of the thriving industries
Yes, ma'am.
na
Yes, ma'am.
malaki ang it shows inclusive growth kasi ang mga nakikinabang ay ang ating mga fisher folks.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Saka napakaganda po na ginagawa ni Dr. Kanakan kasi kumbaga ma'am, siya po ay pioneer sa industriya na yan dyan po sa Mindanao. Kasi sabi niya po kanina, agriculturist siya pero bigla siya tumalon at nag-aral ng tuna. So with her help and then with time at sa madami po niyang pwedeng i-train ng mga kabataan, definitely ma'am lalawak at lalawak po yung kaalaman at matututunan tungkol po dun sa ocean and tuna po dyan po sa area po sa Mindanao. Bago po tayo mapunta kay Academician Ruben, mapunta po muna tayo kay Sir Ike. Sir Ike, ano po ang ating question?
I have 3 questions if you would allow it, no?
Sige po, sir.
Doktora, meron ba kayo nakitang plastic or microplastic sa tiyan ng mga isda? Second question, meron ka bang nakitang policy implication na halimbawa ipagbawal yung huli ng certain species kasi kinakain ito ng tuna? Pangatlo, I used to be connected with Foreign Affairs, no, DFA. During that time, yung trabaho ko, technology transfer. Mayroon akong ginawa noon, heat map ng tuna, tuna migration. Meron pa bang ganyan ngayon? And if ever mayroon pa, may gumagamit pa ba? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir. Talking about yung microplastic, kung may nakita, actually, sir, meron, sir. Merong mga, meron na nag-study on the microplastic sa tuna and nakita nila na nandoon, meron talagang sa stomach ng mga tuna microplastic. May nakita sila. And sa totoo lang, sir, sa isang project, sa project 4 yata namin pumunta siya sa ocean, ang dami niya nakitang group ng garbage floating sa ocean. And of course doon maraming mga isda rin na naggrupo-grupo sa garbage. So, and confirm naman na meron talagang microplastic sa tuna, sir. And then, second question, yung ano nga yun, sir?
Ano po, ma'am, kung meron daw po bang policy implication o application kung saan pinagbabawal ang paghuli ng certain species na kinakain ng tuna?
May implication sa policy implication or
Sir Ike, ano po yung policy? Di ba policy implication po, di ba?
Dapat bang magkaroon ng policy na bawal yung paghuli ng certain species kasi kinakain ng tuna? And pag hindi pinagbawal, baka mawala ng pagkain yung tuna.
Yes, sir. Actually, isa yan sa mga tiningnan namin. And isa yan sa pinagdebatihan talaga namin sa grupo, sa project, sa program, sir. Kasi, ito, yung kinakain ng tuna, kinakain din ng mga tao. So, ang nangyayari, ang ending, magkakaroon ng problema sa yung livelihood. So, before talaga mag-start tayo ng any ban or policy na pagbawal ang paghuli, kailangan pa talagang pag-aralan ng mabuti, sir, ang lalo na dun sa social aspect. Kasi marami ang magiging affected.
Okay po. And then yung pong last question po
Yung
ni
sa
Sir
heat map.
Ike is yung sa heat map. Kung meron daw po bang gumagamit po nito kasi before daw po ito ay kanyang pinurpose sa before.
Actually,
Yung
gawa na yung Project Mark.
Opo, yun
Database
po.
na yon. Ewan ko lang kung na-sustain yon. Tapos na yon.
Ayun po.
Ngayon, sir, wala kaming nagamit na heat map. Wala kaming ginamit na heat map during the conduct of the study.
Ayun po. So, Sir
Okay.
Ike, paano po kaya mamamaximize ni Dr. Kanakan yung pong heat map po na pwede lang magamit?
Actually, nung ginawa namin yun, wala pa masyadong satellite at saka drone eh. Ngayon, mas madali nang gawin yun.
Yes,
Kung
sir.
mayroong political will to do it, yeah, we can talk about that. Maaari nga existing na yung data eh. Baka nasa NAMRIA na yan.
Opo.
Maybe you have to check. Maybe it's there already.
Yes, sir. May mga groups na meron silang heat map, sir. Gumagawa sila, sir.
Maybe you could inquire from PhilSat. Baka mayroon na
Sige, sir.
sila.
Opo.
Sige po. Noted po yan ni Dr. Kanakan. So, mapunta po tayo sa question po ni Academician Ruben.
Susunod ako, Mark,
Sige po.
Okay, Donna. Anong title ng project mo at kanino isinabit sa Picard? Alam mo, nandito lang ako sa Los Baños, I can easily follow up.
Yes. Sir? Ito siya, sir? Yung dietary analysis ng tuna. Opo. I-check ko, sir, kung kanino.
Dala mo na lang sa akin.
Sige, sir. Opo.
Okay.
That's good po.
Villarreal at...
Yes, sir. Actually, sir, nag-meet na tayo nung undergrad ako. Opo.
Sige na, padala mo sa akin yung title at I can follow it up here.
Yes, sir. Opo, sir.
Okay po.
Thank you.
Yes, papunta po tayo ngayon sa question po ni Sir Ted. Yes, Sir Ted. Ano po ang question?
Congratulations, Donna, no? Na tayong nagkakaano dito sa research mo, but yes, yung strength mo kasi doon sa science, no? Si pioneering work nga to. If I may suggest, ang dagdagan siguro ng socioeconomic studies ang study nyo kasi as global warming intensifies to, Google search ko, maaring mag-decrease up to 20% yung population ng tuna at ang tatamaan dito kayo mismo dyan, Jensen, na ang livelihood ng small fisher folk ay nakadepend sa tuna fish. So, anong pwede natin gawin? So, siguro yung mga socio-economists natin dyan, may involved na sila. Ipiprepare na natin ang mga tao dyan. Ano ang alternative livelihood para sa kanila? Ngayon, nasabi mo nga kanina, it's taking them about 7 hours to travel to catch
7 days, sir. 7 days.
7 days. So, napakalayo na nila.
Opo, from 30 minutes to 7 days.
Kasi nga, yung range of temperature na gusto nila, 20 to 30 degrees centigrade. Kung tumaas na doon nga, maghahanap na sila kung mainit na dyan sa inyo, sa coastal area, sa mababaw na lugar, pupunta na sila sa malalim na lugar. So, at the same time, yung kanilang mga barko na ginagamit, lalaki na rin siguro. So, of course, ito yung sabi nila, yung mga malalaking corporation na lang, malalaking kapital, sila ang makakapag-capture na lang ng tuna fish at ito ay ultimately magiging mataas na presyo ng tuna tayo ng mga and then affected ang ating food supply na kasi nga Filipinos are essentially on a rice, fish, vegetable diet which is logical kasi nga we're surrounded with bodies of water. Kaya ito na nga, dapat mapaaral na natin siguro ano ang mga alternative protein source natin and so on and so forth. So, kailangan siguro natin sa team na ngayon, may expand na yung study nyo, yung socioeconomic aspect ma-include na. Yun lamang. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Noted. Okay. Mag-close na doon.
Ito po, meron po akong question. Ito po, actually ako din po ay isang agriculturist and major in soil science. So medyo ako po caught in between dito sa climate change and agriculture. Kasi, Doc Kanakan, ano po ang stand nyo dito? Kasi alam naman po natin na isa po sa pinakamalaking source po ng global warming ay ang agriculture production. So pag binungkal po natin ang lupa, lalabas ang carbon dioxide, nag-apply po tayo ng fertilizer, especially nitrogen, nagiging nitrous oxide, nagiging greenhouse gas. So sa inyo pong palagay, Ma'am Kanakan, bilang isang expert po sa soil science and agriculture, ano po ang stand nyo dito? Paano po natin mababalanse ang aspeto ng food production versus sa doon mismo nagmumula ang greenhouse gas?
Yes, sir. Kailangan talaga yung sustainable production and efficiency. Maging efficient tayo sa paggamit ng mga resources para hindi tayo maraming waste. And yun lalo na, di ba, halimbawa sa livestock, yung para hindi marami ang waste, enough lang yung pagkain natin na yung makuha pa rin natin yung target natin na weight ng ating animals. Same with the crops din. Yung mga inputs natin, we have to be efficient sa paggamit ng input so that hindi tayo naglalagay ng mga resources dyan na sobra-sobra that could affect yung soil natin. So efficiency and sustainability.
Okay po.
Yes.
So mapunta po tayo ngayon dito sa last question po sa ating Q&A box. Galing po kay kay El Bayrante. So, Doc, although you did not present domestic data on agriculture production in the Philippines, current news and information show decline in production, especially after major climate disasters. So, is the government providing financial support in terms of research and development, say for DOST or DA, to mitigate climate change impact on food production? So meron daw po bang
Yes po.
financial
Yes
supports?
Po. Meron silang funding for studies on climate change. Actually, DOST and DA, even yung sa regional, meron din silang pina-provide na support.
Okay
yes
po.
Proposal.
So, ito po, galing po sa ating anonymous attendee. This is not a question but a suggestion to access the NFRDI website for in-depth tuna info. Ayan po.
Yes po. Noted po, sir.
So, ayan po. Meron pa po ba tayong mga questions? Nako, ma'am. Maraming salamat po sa pagbibigay po ng oras po sa amin. Kausap ko po si Sir Ted. Alam ko na medyo mahirap kayong hagilapin at busy po ang inyong schedule. Pero maraming salamat pa rin po at naisingit nyo po kami ngayong hapon. So sa ating po mga tagapanood, maraming salamat din po sa pagsama sa amin. Usually every Friday. At dito po natin makikita sa presentation ni Ma'am na ang climate change po malaki po ang role na ginagawa po natin. So meron nga po tinatawag tayo na anthropogenesis. So ibig sabihin po, ito po ay mga pagbabago na gawa po ng tao, gawa po natin yan. Ayan po ay footprint po natin. So maliban po dito, maging matalino po tayo sa pag-consume ng ating kakainin para po kumbaga ma-mitigate po natin ang epekto po ng climate change. Huwag po tayong kumain ng madami sa plastic. Huwag po tayong mag-overconsume para po hindi din po sobra-sobra ang naaani at nasasayang. So ngayon pong hapon, maraming salamat po sa pagsama muli at tayo ay makita-kita next week, same place, same channel. Have a great weekend. Nako, ayan po. Ayaw po mag-play ng video. So anyways, lahat po, let's enjoy the rest of the weekend. Have a great Sunday. Bye-bye po.